everybody. Welcome to our Viva Connections SharePoint Framework bi-weekly sync. So I am your host, Chris Kent, and we've got all sorts of exciting things to talk about today. So, of course, we're going to go through all of our community project updates, and we'll take a look at all the things that are going on there. There's always, there's no shortage of activity. The PnP community, the M365 dev community is very, very strong, and we're doing all sorts of awesome stuff. And then we've got some really cool demos coming up after we take our photo where we wave and pretend we're all in the same room. But we've got some demos from Shahab. He's going to do some columns from different lists with a details list component. Exciting. And then Dan and Tobias are going to show us some stuff with SharePoint version history, modernizing it. What? Impossible. Right. And then Adam's going to show us some stuff with the CLI for Microsoft 365. So it should be a pretty jam-packed and exciting call. So let's get to those updates. All right. So, of course, we have all sorts of ways for you to connect and communicate with us and get involved in this community. So you could start by just watching some videos. We've got, I don't even know how many videos, at least 10, probably more. You know, you wonder how I'll best answer that. We've got a ton of those, right? We've got a LinkedIn group where you can come and interact, right? Post things that you're working on or you're doing stuff. We can have conversations there, ask questions. And then we've got all sorts of repos for you and sample galleries. So we get hundreds and hundreds of samples for you. We've got a sample gallery browser. Check all that out. And then if you want to get involved, again, we've got all sorts of cool things with getting started calls, which we'll talk about here in a little bit to help you get over some of that hump with the GitHub scariness. There we go. All right. And of course, we have these calls. And you can listen to us talk about things. You can see demos from people in the community who are really doing stuff with this stuff, who are actually building stuff. It's not just all make-believe Microsoft marketing. Wow. You know, and then we also have these calls here where you come in and you can chat here on the side, and that's one of my favorite things to do, whether that's making snarky comments or answering other people's questions or just asking your own questions. All of those are helpful activities. So don't feel silly for asking a question. You're just asking the question about 10 other people wanted to ask but didn't have the bravery. So come join our calls and do that. And then, of course, the next one here on the 27th of February, we've got all these exciting demos. So come check those out too. Woo, woo. All right. And then if you want to present, you want to be one of these exciting demo people, you know, that way you get a little less of me. That'd be awesome. So come fill this form out. We are always looking for people to come show off their stuff, right? So we're not looking for product demos, right? But if you've built something that's awesome, whether it's open source or not, and you want to just show off what you built these tools and inspire other people or show a cool thing that you did, again, it doesn't have to be life-changing, right? It can be a very simple getting started thing. You will help someone, and we will appreciate it. All right. Let's see. I don't think David's on the call, is he? David? Surely we would have heard him making sound effects by now.
And I don't think Hugo is in a call either, so...
No, Hugo's in Jamaica. Rude.
Oh, that's true. He's on vacation as well.
Can you believe that?
There's the difference. The Canadians, they go to Jamaica. I'm on vacation, and I'm here. So, just saying.
Yeah, I don't know if it's a Canadian thing or just a personal sickness, you know. Anyway, so we mentioned these sharing and carrying. So David and Hugo and a variety of other team members have these sessions here. So come on in. They're not recorded, so you can ask all your questions, and no one can prove that you asked those questions later. All right, but find out how to do this stuff, right? So GitHub isn't particularly hard, but it is strange. Right, so if you haven't done it, there are weird terms like pull requests. Like, what the heck does that mean, right? Eventually, it'll be like, it's a PR, don't worry about it. But when you're first learning about it, it's weird. So come join this session, find out how you can contribute back or how you can utilize the stuff a little better. And it's a safe space for all that. Wowee. All right, and then we also have our community recognition program with badges and all sorts of exciting things. So if you're participating here, fill out this form here so we can get your information and we can get these badges assigned to you and recognize you for all the stuff you're doing. Oh, yeah. And then, of course, Vessi, you want to talk about the, what is this thing, the SharePoint Framework?
Quick recap in here where we are and what's happening. So let's go to the following slides. So tomorrow we'll have a 7th anniversary for SharePoint Framework for the GA, which is a bit mind-boggling. Time flies when you're having fun. And there has been, what are we talking? 1.19 is the next big version, but we've been having smaller version releases after that, of course. So there's a lot of updates after the GA. But it's 7 years. It's pretty mind-boggling. So really, really cool. That's happening tomorrow. Now let's go to the following slide. This is a bit of a quick recap on what's happened within the last 3 years. We have tripled or whatever the growth on SPFX. So regardless of GA being 7 years ago, because we're providing updates all the time, we are also having a massive growth all the time related on SPFX usage, on people building experiences with that across the Microsoft 365, which is awesome. Let's go to the following slide. Quick recap on what's happening. 1.18.2 is the currently latest version for GA. 1.18.2 had a small new feature, so we recommend always using the latest version. 1.19 is currently estimated to be March, April, and there's plans to be at least some new shapes on the Viva Connection cards, accessibility improvements, technical stack updates for Fluent UI, TypeScript, and Webpack, among the other things, and of course issues based on what is being reported, and much more. So certain things which we cannot yet share all of the details if that will miss 1.19, and it will go 1.20. The big focus area within the SPFX team as well is the Copilot integration scenarios and extensibility over there. So you will hear more about all of that stuff within this semester. Definitely later in spring, we will have some conferences where we show up some cool experiences about that. But that's a quick update from engineering side. Let's go to the following slide.
Wow. Someone here said that it was released when they were in college. My goodness. And yet I'm still over here thinking like, well, this is the latest thing to replace those sandbox solutions. Hopefully it takes, right? 7 years, that's amazing. All right. Let's see, Julie, are you on the call, or Gary here, or Bo, or somebody want to talk about this Pineapple JS? No,
I'm here. Julie's not.
All right, Bo, go for it.
All right, so we released version 3.23 on February 19th. We did, a community member added a new calendar endpoint for Get Schedule to our Microsoft Graph module. So thank you very much for that. Our biggest change was in 3.21 or so. We did release some updates for paging and batching and caching, which allowed us to cache paged calls. We found out that there was a lot of complications with that and was causing some other bugs on the back end. So we reverted that change in 3.23. We are going to review on if there's a better way to implement that in version 4. As Patrick just said, version 4 nightly builds are working. So if you do want to check that out, please do. And if you have any issues, please go to our GitHub and post them on the issues list. Back to you, Chris.
Dang, that team, you guys are just killing it all the time. This is awesome what you guys are coming up with. And speaking of kill it, Gary, you ever for talking about that CLI, all the stuff you guys are doing over there?
Yep. So new beta version of CLI for Microsoft 365 is out. We're up to 7.5.0. So in this beta release, we've got more commands for Microsoft Entra, so more commands for managing administrative groups. We've also got some commands in there for managing your app and delegate permissions on the app registrations, adding users to groups, creating new groups, and also getting a list of authentication methods for your users as well. So if you want to understand, what types of authentication methods you're using out in the wild, that will be very useful for you. Nice utility command of just being able to copy files from one location to another, very useful. And we've finally renamed our Yammer commands, so they're now Viva Engage commands as well. If you want to get a hold of this, you can get the latest beta version from npm. Just use the @next tag. You can also use our Docker container as well, so you don't even have to install it. You can just run the container. And we've got a few other updates as well around documentation, bug fixes, usual things. If you want to check out the full release notes, go to aka.ms/CLI-M365/notes. If you are not a member of our Discord server and you want to get involved in the CLI community, that is the best place to start. So go over to aka.ms/CLI-M365/Discord and you'll find our invite link. Moving on to the next slide, Chris. Okay, so we've had a new beta release of DevProxy. DevProxy is the tool that's going to enable you to simulate API errors, behaviors, and mock responses, and many other things as well. So we are closing in on the next stable release, V0.15, which we're going to be shipping the end of this month, so probably next week. And we've got lots of updates, lots of new features. simplifying the usage of proxy, making it more featureful. And we've also got a new a Visual Studio Code extension as well, the Dev Proxy Toolkit. So if you're working with Dev Proxy, you're trying to work with the configuration files, finding things a little bit more difficult to update, then the toolkit is going to really help you simplify that experience as well. We're continuously updating this, so we're looking to release every few weeks. So if you are using Dev Proxy, definitely check that out. And Chris, back to you.
Oh yeah. All right, let's talk about these reusable SharePoint Framework controls. All right, so recently on the 5th, we had a couple of updates to these. So, right, we've got the React controls. So these are the things you're actually doing on the page, right side the web part component or wherever. All right, and then you got the stuff over in the property pane. That's the property controls. So several really cool updates. And again, if you aren't using these and you're building SPFX, you're nuts. That's crazy, right? I mean, not really, right? There's all sorts of reasons. But these will save you so much time if you start with these, even if you end up going with some of your own, just seeing how these are implemented. Again, these are from the community. It's a huge effort and initiative and really, really powerful and cool updates there. There you go. I'll let you read those. All right. Adam, you want to talk about this here, the Viva Connections Toolkit?
Yeah, sure. You betcha. So we've just released a new pre-release version, version 2.5.1. And we are slowly going towards our V3, and we thought that, okay, we want to reach V3 till the end of March. So with the V3, we'll finally rename this product to SPFX Toolkit because it's the better name, because this Visual Studio Code extension is all about boosting your productivity in SharePoint Framework development. In this pre-release, you can already test a new scaffolding form for your SPFX projects or components. So before you had like a Q&A kind of experience, and it wasn't that good because you didn't know how many questions there are and how the form and questions will change depending on what kind of project, SPFX project you want to create. Now we have a form, so it's really clear what are the paths, what are the needed things. And this is the first step to improve this scaffolding process, because in the next pre-release or release, we want to extend the SPFX scaffolding projects with additional steps that will give you, for example, a quick action that you can install PnP.js with a single click, like selecting a checkbox, and it will scaffold the new project and install the PnP.js, and so on and so forth. Also, we are including the Azure DevOps support for the CI/CD pipeline action. It's currently in the PR opened on CLI side, so we are waiting for it to be improved. Or read it. Okay, anyway, that's all for that. Definitely try it out if you're doing any kind of SPFX development. Thanks. Back to you, Chris.
Yeah. All right, Casper, can you give us an update on the modern search?
Yeah, on the 4.10.2, and we've been that for the last couple of weeks, and we are still taking in additional PRs as they are coming, and we also have a layout, new repository for custom layouts. So if you have cool layouts or you just want to get inspired, create your own layouts, go have a look there. And these fine gentlemen have been contributing for the last within the last 2 weeks. So if you want to see your face there, go ahead and make up a PR in our repositories. That would be very nice of you. Back to you, Kent.
I like it. You want your face? That's perfect. All right. Let's talk about SharePoint Framework ACEs here. All right. So we've got a new world clock sample, or who's talking about this here? Who's got it?
I've got it, Chris.
Ah, perfect. Good.
Yes, yeah. So we've got a new sample which was merged recently, the world clock sample that was done by Matteo Serpi. It's a nice sample which shows the current time on the ACE, and then if you click on it, it shows the times from the different time zones. So yeah, do take a look at that. And we love new samples. So on the link over there, aka.ms/m365/samples, you can see all the ACE samples. And if you want to submit the ACEs, you can do that at aka.ms/spfx.aces. Back to you, Chris.
Thank you, Noob. Appreciate it. All right, Vesa, I think we're ready for the picture time. All right, I'll let you take over and do that here.
Yep, I will do that. So let me actually move in here. We have 50 seats in a room. And let's start Camtasia. This is why I don't typically have this one as the primary monitor. It's one of the screens. Now I can see a lot of familiar faces. Let's move that one actually in here. Let's make sure that we are recording the screen. Oh, that is looking good. I'm gonna get rid of my camera and a few more seats in the room. We're not yet recording. Not yet. A lot of familiar faces here. I think for whatever reason, Nick, oh, there we go. Nick was actually shown, the only one with the name on the screen. But I think we are good. So let's do some recording and let's do some hand waving. No pixelation today. This is good. Thank you, everybody. Awesome to have you on the call. Awesome to have you part of the community. Oh, there we go. Mark got his own row. You are the leader of the gang, clearly. Excellent. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for being on the call. We'll grab a GIF animation out of that. Cheers. Thank you. Bye-bye. Chris, let's go back on the slides.
All right. Woo-woo. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at the awesome stuff for today. We got our first demo here. Shahab, are you ready to go?
Yes, I'm ready.
Perfect. Take it away whenever you're ready. Go for it.
Okay, I will share my screen. Please let me know if you see my screen.
You can see the screen. Let's go to the presentation mode and we'll begin.
Okay, sure. Hi guys, my name is Shahab Matapour. I'm a Microsoft 365 and SharePoint developer. In this presentation, the functionality.
Shahab, sorry to interrupt you. Any chance we can go to the presentation mode, not just seeing the because we can now see the slides.
Sure.
Yeah.
Is it okay?
It's better. Yeah, it's much better for the demo production. So thank you for that. Sorry.
Sure.
And take it away.
I just said hello, and I'm Shahab Matapour, a Microsoft 365 and SharePoint developer. In this presentation, the functionality of the merge list columns web part will be explained. This SPFX web part enables you to select some columns from different sites and lists. Then you can merge those selected columns and finally display the aggregated column in a Fluent UI detail list component. Meanwhile, users with full control access level can decide whether other users should have access to the settings of the web part or not. Let me open my browser. If you adding this web part in the app catalog site and adding it to a page, you will see something like this. Add it to this page. In the web part setting, there are two main sections. The first one pertains to appearance and style of the web part, which we won't focus on. You can easily set a caption for column and change the alignment and adjust font size. The next section specifies which kind of user can view or edit this web part. The second section, visibility status. There are two Fluent UI toggle elements in that section. The first one is determines which type of user can see the result of the web part. For example, you can either choose everyone or only administrator. In this case, I will set it to everyone, which means all users who have access to the current site can see the result of the web part. And next one will specifies which kind of user can configure this web part. I will set it on administrators, which means only people who have full control access level can configure this web part. Current user is an administrator and has full control access level. So there is a primary button in the page. Clicking that button reveals a panel containing some drop-downs, multi-selection drop-downs. the first drop-downs allow us to select some sites from our tenant. In this case, I will select some site which is different from my current sites. Once you select a site, all lists related to that site will be accessible in the next drop-down. So I will select some list in each site. Similarly, upon selecting a list, all columns related to that list will be accessible in the next dropdown. Each dropdown at least have one item header, which making it easy to distinguish which site and list these items are belong to. In this case, I will select 3 columns. The type of columns is not important at all. You can select any type of column as you wish. For example, lookup field, person and group, choice field, date and time, etc. No problem, actually. Once you select desired column, a button in the panel becomes visible. Clicking that button displays all items related to the selected column in the web part zone in a detailed list component, I mean. Now let's examine the web part from a user's perspective. I already logged in as a different user with different credentials. This user is she has only able to edit the page, and she is not a member of site owner or administrator group. As you can see, there is no primary button which is responsible for configuring this web part. In this case, as she can edit the page, if this kind of user try to change the settings of the page, they cannot do that as expected, because we set it only administrators with full control access level can do that. And other users can only apply some filter on detail list and just see the result of the web part. And now let's explain how this web part works. It initially creates a list in the current site. Once user clicks on the show grid button, an encoded query will be stored in the mentioned list. The query is structured as following format: site ID, list ID, all selected column which are separated by pipeline character, and list grid. For example, if user selects some columns from 3 different sites and lists, the query is structured as follow. You don't have to be worried about query because, but it is important to know, because there are some functions in the solution which are in charge of parsing query. It is important to know always the result of the latest query will be displayed in the detail list component. Now let's dig into the code. At the very beginning, this solution tried to recognize if the list exists or not. If so, it tries to retrieve the query. Otherwise, it will create a list, and the rest is history. In the main web part output, you can see the button and show panel component and grid. All drop-down and panel you have seen in the previous steps are located in the show panel component and its children. When user clicks on the show grid button, all data is passed back to the main component, I mean to the parent. So we have all data required to pass to the component which is responsible to showing a detailed list. In this project, I utilized a Graph API to fetch information from SharePoint. All methods that are required to get information from SharePoint are located in the Graph Services class. For example, get all SP site is in charge of fetching all site in your tenant as a drop-down options. There are other methods in this class which perform similar tasks, such as returning all lists in a site and all columns in a list, and so on. In the service section, there are some other services, such as grid services, which is in charge of removing hidden column or duplicated columns. And utilities class is responsible for aggregating columns and a parsing query. And SharePoint services manage some tasks such as create list and query, as well as saving and retrieving queries. I mean, this SharePoint services will create a list and column and retrieving queries required for detailed list component. Let me back to the slides. This project is publicly available on my GitHub repository. With this address, hopefully I can publish it on the SPFX sample very soon. If there are any questions, I will be glad to assist you on GitHub. Thank you all for your time and attention.
All right, thank you very much. That was awesome. So let's head on over to our next presenters. So Dan and Tobias, are you ready? Looks like it.
Great. I think we're sharing a screen here.
Yep, go for it. It's all yours.
Awesome. Yeah, so me and Tobias built a really cool SPFX web part that we're going to take a look at. Really, it's an extension, but that doesn't really matter in this case. Yeah, so first, a little bit about myself. My name is Dan. I'm a Microsoft 365 consultant based out of Denmark. I am lucky enough to have been awarded Microsoft MVP as of January this year. So finally getting to show that blue badge somewhere. Yeah, and as for my my partner in crime here, Tobias, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Thank you, Dan. My name is Tobias Maestrini. I'm working as a Microsoft 365 consultant in Switzerland in a Swiss company called Adesso, which is part of Adesso Group, which employs a bunch of people in whole Europe and abroad. So back to you, Dan.
Yeah, well, I mean, we have a short agenda of what we're going to go through. If I should just quickly go over it, the first things we're going to talk about is the why we build it. Then we're going to have, of course, a demo, and then we're going to look at some code. And then we're going to round it all up with a nice summary of what we've been through. So over to you, Tobias.
Yeah, let's first talk about the why we have built this extension. We are all familiar with the standard version history in SharePoint Online. This allows users to view, restore, or delete previous versions of files and items in a list or library, as you want to say. When a file or an item is changed, a new version is automatically created so that users can track the changes and revert to previous versions if required. One challenge is the restriction on the number of versions recorded. In addition, all the versions may be automatically deleted to save storage space. Unfortunately, there is nothing you can do about this, not even us, even if we have the idea of developing a new fancy SharePoint extension. So what I always keep stumbling over is not only the fact that the built-in version overview is still classic looking SharePoint UI, which means kind of looking outdated in certain parts. And look at Dan's quote on top 10 is right. Classic SharePoint should have been gone before even he was born. So the point is, when many users work on a file and make frequent changes, the version history can quickly become confusing. And it can be very difficult to find and restore the desired version, which often brings users into a situation in which they don't feel that comfortable. At least my clients often told me so. And Dan, please go on slide deck. When searching for a particular version of a file or item, do you also often encounter these questions? For example, which version contains my changes, or the changes of X or someone else, or who changed it generally and when, and which metadata did change besides the standard metadata from version to version, and which version was the one that was rejected or approved by my colleague. I always have to go through this long list of editors and document sizes that the built-in version history on the left-hand side here offers, filtering editors and change dates and compare file metadata from different versions. So what we wanted to provide on the right-hand side was an easy to understand user interface by enhancing the built-in experience. For example, by decreasing the loading time of the history window, and that's why I'm start smiling again, because as the built-in version history experience is based on the classic user interface of SharePoint Online, it simply takes a little longer to load, like many other things in classic mode. That's least how I often experienced it. We also wanted to provide some enhancements in showing the basic metadata of a file or of an item, or by providing capabilities for filtering and version comparison, or simply integrating the modern look of SharePoint Online. And this is exactly where our extension comes in and offers 5 useful features. Time for demo, Dan.
All right, so let's take a look. Let me know if you can actually see my screen here, if I'm only sharing a window.
Yeah, we do.
Awesome.
Thank you. Once deployed tenant-wide, the extension and its features is always available in every document library or in every custom SharePoint list. Like every extension, it also could be deployed on a site level, but let's talk about tenant level deployment. The extension also doesn't care of user permissions. It integrates completely into standard SharePoint behavior and is visible to every SharePoint user. This also means that the displayed data, which Dan shows up right now, is completely security trimmed and therefore processed by SharePoint. Now to the features. In addition to this awesome looking modern UI that uses the React timeline component, React vertical timeline component, it offers filtering by editor. Just show us how it works.
Yeah, so it's not going to do too much since this is my own tenant and there's only one user, but we could hypothetically filter by the editor up here. I don't know if this item has any So yeah, as you can see, I get pretty lonely on my own tenant, but we do have the option up here to filter by the editor.
Yeah, and this is pretty neat when different authors worked on the same document, and I want to filter out all the changes that belong to my working body X or to my that are my changes. And there is also by entering a start date or an end date, which filters out all the versions that were processed during this period. And this works as beautiful as Apple's time machine, because it allows a kind of time warping, you know. Yeah, as you can see, it's very easy. Datetime selections or selection allows to set a start and end date, and yeah. Just preview a specific version before restoring it. By scrolling down and up, see the full versions of the document on a given date by clicking on View Version. And SharePoint standard behavior normally tells the browser to open the specific version of the file in a blank target, and in kind of document libraries in terms of document libraries, this always results in a download of a file to your local machine instead of showing it in a new tab. Unfortunately, we haven't changed this behavior for some reasons. And there are also two more options to restore or delete a specific version, all included in this Actions drop-down. And this Actions drop-down menu here is more intuitive approach compared to the built-in experience where the actions are hidden behind a modification date, which is formatted as a hyperlink. So I would say, yeah, just show it up. Just bring it up.
So this is what the classic one looks like.
Yeah.
And you have to know that you have to click out here, and you can't click on the actual text, because then you'll be redirected to just an embedded version of the classic list item page.
I mean, this is okay, but our version is more. I would say it's more intuitive. By clicking into this Actions drop-down menu, which offers all those different actions, document or version actions. If you would switch back to our extension, then thank you. What I really like is the comparison mode to compare any two or more document versions together by displaying the metadata that has changed from version to version. If you select two or more versions, the corresponding files and their metadata are displayed side by side, and this makes them directly comparable. And the comparison options are not limited to two or more consecutive versions. Simply select the desired versions to display and you're good to go.
Yes, this is one of those things that keeps coming up with at least my customers, where they will go, hey, what has changed since version 1 and version 5, or version 5 and version 13? And you can go ahead and you can actually compare those two, and it will show you all the changes that have been made in between.
Right, yeah, you're right. And last but not least, it's the approval overview. Just keep track of who has approved or rejected the corresponding version and when the approver did so. The commands on the approver's decision are also displayed if they are or they have been submitted. And the built-in version history does not provide a comparable overview of all existing versions and the according approval commands. And we have changed this from scratch.
Awesome. Yeah, so that was a little bit of the demo. We're a little bit short on time, so we will just quickly jump to the code and take a quick look at some of the things in here. So the first one I wanted to point out is that using a little bit of Chris Kent's magic website, FL Icons, for those of you who don't know that, we were able to download the icons that we used for if you choose to deploy this as a command bar extension. And then we can actually dynamically change the color of that, meaning that whenever you deploy a extension as a command bar extension, you can match the color of that. That is also supported in this sample. The next thing is we have the issue of, hey, we're deploying this as a context menu command bar or a context menu extension. Why don't we use emojis to make it more visible? Turns out SharePoint doesn't care that you use emojis, but it actually brings it really in front of the user. And it is something I've started doing in production environments because this is way easier for the user to spot than version history. Yeah, so that was just a little tip for anyone building these kinds of extensions. You can bring your things forward. Then I wanted to point out that we are using PNP.js, obviously, since it makes a lot of things way easier for us. They have wrapped the entire versions API for us, so we're just calling it and like getting the data we need right away. From there, it's just a matter of us looping over each single field that is in every version, because the version API returns full objects for every version. So we need to identify by ourselves what has changed, what has not changed since the last version. So we will take a look at that. We used an enum to like identify which kind of fields we are, loop through them, field name, internal name, new value, old value. These are all the properties that we're going to be using later on to display them in the front end. As you can see here, we are tracking a version by tracking what has changed, what is the version name. I saw somebody asking if we could do it with minor versions. That should work just as well, because that will just be a different version name. Then we implemented a React hook to get these versions that we called use versions, making it really easy that you just kind of feed it like some information about where you are, what is the context, and then there you go. It will automatically return all the versions of that given list item that's selected. Then we're getting to the rendering. Again, here we're using that same enum, rendering out dependent on which kind of users it is. And behind the scenes, we're using some of the reusable controls that were mentioned earlier to make it such that there's a person card whenever you hover over a person. Unfortunately, that seems to be a little bit buggy right now. I saw some comments mentioning it shows up behind the dialog. That is correct. That is one of those things where it worked last time I touched it, and now it doesn't. So that's interesting and something we will need to look at. Then the moderation status, Tobias mentioned it here. I'm just bringing it in just so you can see there is the approval statuses being mapped out. So you don't actually know, or so you know if the document was approved or not. We didn't have approvals turned on in the demo we did, but if they were turned on, you would see colored labels matching whether or not it was actually approved. And then the one last thing. We have the delete version and restore version here. And what we found is PNP.js has beautifully wrapped the delete version. Unfortunately, there's no public API to restore a version. So we considered two routes. We could either go ahead and we could just copy over all the values and thereby recreate the version, or we could do the naughty thing and look at what happens whenever we click restore version in the UI. So that's the route we went with. And we looked at what is happening. And essentially, we're building a URL here and then posting to that URL because that is what the UI does. That way, we're sure we're getting the same experience should something change, unless the API changes underneath. In which case, I guess that's why you don't ever want to like reverse engineer APIs, because things might break. So beware of that if you do decide to deploy this extension in your environment. All right, and quickly jumping through. So to summarize, building apps on top of M365 is always fun. And it's really easy to get going. SPFX makes the whole thing a breeze. there are some APIs that are not always there. Another one that I keep bringing up, I know you know this, Vesel, but I'll keep saying it, is the SharePoint News API. And then lastly, building things together is just great fun. I hadn't worked with Tobias before, we chatted a little bit on X throughout the years. It was a great experience and lots of fun working remotely async. Yeah, I don't know if you have anything more to add, Tobias. Otherwise, I will go to the final slide and just say a huge thank you, everyone. It's been a pleasure presenting for you.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Thank you, Dan.
Well, the reaction in the chat has been huge. So people are extremely excited about this. I think you're going to be a lot of people installing this right now even. So, but let's go ahead and move on over to Adam. So Adam, if you're ready, you can go ahead and take over the screen share. We'll take a look at your demo.
Yeah, sure. It's somewhere here. Okay, do you see it? I see it, so.
It looks great. Yep.
Okay, great. So that's about it, yeah. Okay, so today I will be presenting you a CLI for Microsoft 365, and this is the first demo out of the 5 demo series I am planning to deliver together with co-maintainers and our co-contributors along the way that will be helping me present your CLI through this journey, and we'll be presenting some tips and tricks how we can use CLI to manage your tenant, boost your development, and it will give you like really just a glance of what CLI is. So if there is some topic you are particularly interested in, was interesting for you, please do let me know in the chat, and I will do a deep dive separate demo only on that. And today I will be doing only the intro. So the what and the why and the how. So let's go before we start. So hi everybody, my name is Adam. I'm a father and standard dev. I'm a CLI for Microsoft 365 maintainer, and a maintainer of a couple of other PMP products. I'm the member of PMP core team. Just reach me out if you need any help directly. Don't be shy. Okay, so what is CLI for Microsoft 365? It's a command line tool to manage your Microsoft 365 tenant and SharePoint Framework products, which is really cool. It's built on Node.js technology, so it will where any device, any platform, Windows, Mac, Android, your smart fridge, yeah, whatever, and in any shell, bash, parse, or command line. And beneath, we are using all the well-known Microsoft 365 REST APIs like SharePoint REST API, MS Graph, Azure Power Platform specific APIs, and we expose them as commands that do a specific thing or a whole scenario or things. And the targeted audience towards this tool is like for tenant admins or devs, or to be used, of course, in automated scripts. Why would you use CLI then? Well, we have a lot of commands that cover a huge area around our Microsoft 365 world. Of course, SharePoint Online, SPFX development as well, a huge contribution that was done to the Power Platform area. So not only Power Apps and Power Automate, but Dataverse, Cards, AI Builder, all of that, Purview, and a lot more. It's really intuitive when you start working with it and interactive by default. I will be presenting it a bit today. So if I want to add a new list to SPO, it's like SPO list, and then the action I want to do, add, get, set, remove, etc. We have an AI, of course, we have an AI, right? An AI assistant built in the command line, so you can just execute it directly from your terminal. I will present it today. It's really helpful when you're beginning your journey with CLI and you don't know where is the command or which is the command you can use, or if such a command exists. CLI can be used in code in a Node.js app as your single API for your app. So this is really, I would say, unique kind of thing for a command line tool. And CLI integrates easily with CI/CD pipeline flow, so it integrates easily with Azure DevOps or GitLab, and with GitHub, we can say it integrates natively because we expose GitHub actions that you can just get from the GitHub workflow store, marketplace, whatever it's called, and just use it here. And currently we are investing in this area. So we added a command that will generate a CI/CD pipeline for GitHub, and we are, as I said before, there's an open PR to extend the support for Azure DevOps on the way. It's really customizable, so there are many things you can set to make it your own. As I said before, it has commands that will allow you to manage, validate, upgrade, whatever your SPFX environment and project. So this is really cool, and it works everywhere. Yeah, any device, any shell, yes, Azure functions and all of the stuff. Yeah. So why would you use CLI and not something else? And before I do a deep dive on this slide, just let's confirm that there is no one tool that is perfect for every scenario. So it's always the answer is it depends on your preferences in your case. Yeah. But why would you use CLI instead of doing things manually? Well, it gives you possibility to save and then reuse it to automate your work instead of then doing the same clicks all the time. Instead of writing your own custom console application using, for example, PnP Core or whatever, well, why would you start from scratch if you have all this awesome work already done for you by the community? It's actively maintained. And for example, in the last year, between V6 and V7, we added more or less 120 commands. So it's like new command every 3 days, which is like huge and an awesome contribution. Thank you very, very much. Why would you use it instead of SharePoint Online Management? Sure, well, it's not only about managing SharePoint Online, but about everything that is on your tenant. And the SPO is more targeted towards the admin side and the site collection level, while Microsoft CLI for Microsoft 365 go on the artifact level as well. So like list, item, folders, etc. In the MS Graph CLI, MS Graph PowerShell SDK, the case is the same. We don't use only MS Graph underneath. We also use SharePoint REST, API CSOM, Azure Planner. So we have a lot of more capabilities there. And we have a different approach where we require you to consent to all of the required permissions up front instead of starting with a minimal set of permissions. So we will be sure, CLI is sure that you won't be blocked by permissions when executing any kind of commands using it. And it's handcrafted. So the docs for Graph CLI and Graph PowerShell SDK are code-generated. And here, if you checked our docs or contributed to the CLI, you for sure noticed that we put a lot of details to the documentation. So each command's docs are readable, have all the needed details, examples for outputs, possible outputs of the commands, and so on. And this is a huge one. Before I go here, just let me revise myself. So there's no one tool perfect for every scenario, but still, let's try to tackle it. Why would you use CLI instead of PnP PowerShell? Well, we have, for example, commands that allow you to manage your SPFX projects, which is quite unique. We have an AI assistant, and it's interactive by default, so you don't need to write the whole command with all of the options or parameters or whatever you call them. You can just start the command, hit enter, and CLI will ask you questions to get the required minimal info to run this command. Okay, so we have a huge work done in the Power Platform area, so not only Power Up, Power Automate, chatbots, Dataverse, AI Builder, cards. You can use it as in your Node.js app as a single API. Yeah, so this is really awesome. And it works in any shell, not just PowerShell. So yes, of course, PowerShell can be used Windows, Linux, Mac, everywhere. But if someone is used to using Bash, then with CLI, he or she can still use Bash. We don't need to switch to a different shell, which is PowerShell in this case. Okay, I hope I convinced you a bit to give it a try. And if you would like to try, so this is an npm package. CLI is this npm package, so you can run the standard npm install command to get it. Or we also expose it through Docker, so you can use the Docker run command to get the latest CLI for Microsoft 365 image. And the first thing you will want to do is login, but be advised that we have a 365 setup command. It's a huge tip that will make CLI your own with just answering to a few questions. So really advise and recommend to start with this command, but of course, login is usually the first thing we do. And it's not really connecting to a single site collection, it's logging to the whole tenant. And of course, we have two possible ways to do it as a user, of course. And here we can have we have three authentication methods we can use with device code, which is default, password and browser. Device code and browser are recommended because then you log in through your browser and you can leverage, for example, multi-factor authentication. And you can log in as an app. So this is a perfect use case when you are using CLI and your automated scripts. And then you can use certificate or secret as authentication methods. And of course, we understand that the list, and you will see it, so permissions CLI require upfront is huge. And if you're not an admin of your own tenant, and then the admin will say like, dude, yeah, this is too much. You just want to modify something on SharePoint Online. Why do you need all of those permissions? Well, we totally understand it. And it's also possible to create your own app registration and then log in as a user through your own app. So that way you can trim the permissions that are required only, for example, to running the support SPO. Okay, and we also have the identity authentication method. This one we'll be presenting in further demos. but this is specifically created for Azure resources. So for example, you can use it in Azure functions to manage, leverage the managed identity in the background. Yeah, so take identity from it. Okay, cool. So a really small demo today. So this is my console, and I have my Microsoft CLI already installed. So if I just hit M365, I get it. Okay, hi, these are the possible commands you can run, and these are the possible areas we go. And usually we would start with a login, but if you are a beginner, I would highly recommend with the setup command, which is mentioned here, which will make CLI our own. Because if we check the docs, and this is something I will do a deep dive in the next demo, you can see that it's really configurable, and we have a lot of settings to make CLI your own, but you don't have to care about this at all. You can just run the M365 setup, and it is a wizard that will ask you two questions. Do you want to use CLI interactively or in script? Interactively. Are you a beginner or advanced user? I am a beginner, and cool. And these are the settings that we will set for you for your specific case. I like them, and that's it. So for example, it set for me the auto open links in browser or copy device code to clipboard. What's that all about? Okay, it will make more sense when I do the login. But basically, this is the settings we use to say it's preferable for these kind of answers and this kind of person who will be using CLI and command line. Okay, so let's do the login and see this process. Okay, so it's presented me a link. I didn't touch my keyboard, yeah, and it opened the browser, and I just click here, Control F, so it already copied the device code under beneath. Now I just need to do my standard tenant login. So yeah, let's wait a bit. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? 6. Oh, I got it wrong. And of course, there's a lot of permissions you need to consent up front, but be aware we have a lot of commands that cover all of the Microsoft 365 world. And it's also possible, as I said before, to trim it down to specifically, for example, to Power Platform commands by using your own app registration. Okay, cool. I'm logged in. Really easy, right? I'm logged in as this user using our CLI app, and I use device code to get logged in. Cool. So how do we move around it? So what's actually possible here? I know I have some SPO commands, so I just type M365 SPO. Okay, so I have those commands and those possible areas I can move forward, okay, like SPO site. And it doesn't seem like it's helping me, right? It's not that interactive, what I said. Okay, but we also have the command competition that you can set up for each shell that will get you like auto suggestions of the commands you are trying to write. So I'll just turn it on, and yeah, in the starting docs of our product, it's recommended to do it. So we support PowerShell, of course, and other shells as well. And it's just a single command. And after I run it, I can now use the tab. So like I do SP, and now I press the tab, and it goes over all of the possible areas that go with that pattern. And then I can go like site. Okay, so I have site design, site script, and it's really helping me to pick the right command without just like hitting enter. Okay, this is what's possible. So I can go one step forward. Okay, now this is possible. So those auto completion, it's really, really great. Let's do a site list. So we'll see how the CLI works, and it will list, since I have like 1,000 collections, will go 1 hour. Okay, it is already done. What if I want to do a specific, get a specific site? So SPO site list was the action I wanted to do. So other actions, of course, are like get, add, and so on and so forth. So it's really intuitive, and I can get info about a specific site I want, and it's supposed to be interactive. Of course, I can now pass the URL, as you see here, and pass the whole URL, but is it really helpful? No, it isn't, but if you just hit enter, CLI will make it helpful. So it's say, okay, you want to get a site, which one you want to pick? Because if this was the list, pick at least one and provide me this URL so I can help you. Cool. So do I have to provide the whole URL? No, because CLI understands your login to this tenant, and if this is your host, so you can just use the relative path, right? CLI demo 1. I think I got correct. Okay, and this is my my site. Yeah, the info about my site. Another use case where we can see how CLI is interactive. So let's say in my tenant, I have a couple of site designs, and yeah, I have 2 site designs with the same name. Really smart of me, but it's possible to do it, so I've done it. Yeah. And what if I want to get a specific one? Like just like this, I don't want to specify the whole parameters. So CLI will first ask me, do you want to use the ID or specify the title of the site design to get this site design? So yeah, I want to go with the title. I don't care. Maybe it'll work. Yeah. So let's type the title, sample site design. Cool. And CLI said, hey, dude, you have 2 of those with the same title. Really smart. Pick it using the ID. Yeah, it's really slick. Yeah, it's really helpful. And I'll just pick the first one. And this is my output. Okay, cool. I hope you also like it. CLI supports. So what you see, and this is was said when I said that I am a beginner. It will do the outputs as text, so it's really readable in the console, and it's really important for us the content outputted in the command line. It's readable, but of course. We support other output modes like JSON, CSV to make a report in a single command. And what's really cool is also MD, which is Markdown, like a report representation of the output of the command. So it's really cool. So you can already save it to a file and have the report ready, right? And okay, I'm supposed to be finishing right now. So the last thing I want to show is, I know that the CLI has some kind of SPFX, support, validation. What if I want to validate my project? Let's try some AI to help me out. So let's use the GitHub Copilot. So suggestions, so questions, how can I use CLI for Microsoft 365 to validate my SPFX project? So I know there's some kind of command like this, but yeah, I'm not sure what's actually this. So gave me a response, just a single command, project validate. Yeah, this command doesn't exist. Let's try GitHub Copilot to explain it. Yeah, project validate subcommand. Not really. Yeah, if I would go to it's really SPO, so it should be actually SPFX. And if we will try our own AI helper, which we call Chili, and you can just go make M365 question mark, and now we don't need to specify that I'm using CLI because it's obvious. Let's see what will be the response of our own AI, which comes along with CLI. So you can ask any question, how you can do this, how I can do this, what is the command to do this, and you will get not only the command specifically, but all of the content and info that will guide you how you can use it even more for your specific needs. Okay, cool, it didn't work. Let's try again. It's always good to do it live, right? Yeah, sorry for stretching the time. And this is the last beginner's tip I wanted to show today, and I will be summarizing. Okay, let's go back to the slide and maybe. So the last slide I have is like the sum up. So we can get CLI using the npm install or Docker. We have the setup command, so it's like a wizard to set up your CLI for your preferences. We support command completions for any shell. We have different methods that you can log in, and we have our own AI assistant that should work to give you an answer to your question, but unfortunately it doesn't serve for that. So I will start my next demo with this. I hope it will improve. Okay, so I hope I encouraged you to follow along me and my co-presenters during this journey, and the next demo will be about tips and tricks about using CLI, so the AI assistant will be perfectly there. Please follow us and join our Discord server if you want to connect and ask any other specific questions using CLI. At the last Monday of every month, we have office hours. And check out our docs, follow us on Twitter, and if you want to contribute, you get a badge for that. So really, really cool. Thanks a lot, and back to you, Chris.
Very good. Awesome. What a call. Okay, so yeah, so especially important on an awesome call like this is to provide some feedback, right? So let us know what you like here, what you don't like, what kind of demos you'd like to see, what kind of content maybe you feel like we're not covering or covering too much, or blah, 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 and so on. That'd be great. But again, let us know what you'd like here. That's why we do it. We do it for you. So there you go. And also reach out on Discord. So this is a great way to have some of these, to continue this conversation. The kind of chat we've had here today has been really helpful. It's been really awesome. And you can continue that over in our Discord server. So join that. It's free. It's easy to use. There you go. All right. And that's it. So thank you. The recording of this will be on YouTube within 24 hours. You can check it out there, and then the individual demos will also be posted shortly thereafter, so you can share those and review those in depth as needed. That's it for us. Wow!